Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster charge line kit for towed vehicles. Before we do that though, let's just take a minute, talk about this and why it's a good idea to use a charge line. So whenever you're flat towing your vehicle down the road, what can happen is your battery can slowly get depleted over time. And that's because on some vehicles, you know, just the computer system, electrical systems in general will create a draw. But for all of them that use a supplemental braking system, that braking system is going to use your Jeep's battery power every time it turns on. So every time you hit the brake, it's going to use a little bit of that power, a little bit of that power, so on and so forth. And having a charge line, what this is going to do is more or less trickle charge or maintain your battery whenever you're flat towing it behind your motorhome. So that way, you know, for one, you're not going to have a dead battery once you get to your destination and have to deal with all that, you know, getting a jump box out or cables bothering someone, whatever the case may be. But it'll also give you the confidence to know that your braking system is going to have the proper amount of voltage to operate as it should, as well as some of the electrical systems that are coming on these late model vehicles now. You know, a lot of them have electric assist steering, brakes, things like that. Not sure if the Jeep per se uses all those things, but the charge line will allow proper voltage to go to the battery and systems like that to be able to function properly as well. The way the kit works is really simple. So power is going to come into your vehicle's power supply. So current is going to feed into here, and this is connected to your battery, and that's how it's going to charge it. Kind of moving towards the front, that wire is going to be connected to a circuit breaker, and this just keeps everything protected. If there's a short or anything like that by chance, you know, the breaker will trip and it's not going to harm your vehicle. But the power is going to come from this wire, which is ran down to your vehicle's 6-way round type connector. And so when you plug into here, and the other end of the cable that plugs into here will go to the 7-way connector on your motorhome. And it's going to receive that power from your motorhome 7-way from the 12-volt auxiliary circuit. And that's where it gets the amperage from. A lot of people wonder if this is going to affect their motorhome's batteries or anything like that, and the answer is no. That's what that 12-volt auxiliary power is there for on the motorhome, to use something like this or other accessories. And the motorhome also has its own charging system, right? Uses the alternator to charge the batteries whenever it's going down the road, and so there's definitely a little bit of amperage to spare to keep your Jeep's battery topped off. To compare our Roadmaster kit to another charge line, here I have on hand the one that's made by Demco. Both good kits. I've used each one a lot, and they'll definitely get the job done. With the Demco, it's a little different. It uses a fuse instead of a circuit breaker, which honestly I'm a little partial to, because if there is an issue, the fuse pops and stops sending power completely, as to where the circuit breaker, you know, it auto resets. So after a while it'll reset, send power. If the issue still persists, it'll trip again, and you know, so on and so forth. And it also, the Demco one has a diode built into it, so electricity is only able to flow one direction and can't be backfed, and that seems to help with corrosion down at your 6-way connector, because you're not going to have power there all the time. So just a couple little things, but more importantly, I feel like this might have an advantage over the Roadmaster kit on this particular vehicle because the wiring is a little bit longer. And with the Roadmaster one, it was really a stretch to get everything ran over here and hooked up. You had to utilize every little bit of wire that they give you to make that happen. As it's where this kit, a little bit longer, and it's not something you'll have to be you know, too worried about. You know, even if you take a little bit longer path, you should still be in pretty good shape, getting it from the front of your 6-way up to this power post. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, really no reason not to use a charge line. You know, it's cheap insurance. It'll make sure your battery stays charged, all your systems work properly, and give you a little extra confidence whenever you're going down the road. As far as the installation goes, really not too bad. It's one wire you gotta run, mount up the breaker, hook it to the battery. So shouldn't really give you too many issues or take up a bunch of your time, but with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're gonna be here at the front of our Jeep, and we're doing this at the same time that we're doing our base plate as well as our diode wiring. And I say it because with the fascia removed, it's a lot easier to see what's going on. With that said though, this is doable if you're adding it later with everything put back together. Just a little more difficult to run your wires and things like that. And I say do this right after your diodes because the charge line is going to get hooked up to the same connector plug that your diodes plug into. So this is where we're going to be working. You want to grab the bundle of red wire that comes with the charge line and take one end of it, run it through the rubber dust cover there for your connector plug. And then we can strip the end of the insulation back a little bit, about like that. Give that wire a good twist, get it tight. And then the post that we're going to be working with is here in the center. So you can just take a small screwdriver, back that set screw out almost all the way. I try to leave it in there a little bit because they kind of a pain to get back in. They're easy to lose. And then you're just going to take the bare end of that wire, place it down into that terminal, and tighten it down. One thing I do recommend doing at the very end, once everything is hooked up and you're done inside of here, come back and put some silicone between the terminals, and that just helps prevent corrosion. But like I said, I wait to the very end to do that because if we have any issues, you know, we need to get back in here, we don't have a huge mess to deal with. So for the time being, we'll put our dust cover on and secure this down. We can route our wiring now to the passenger side of our vehicle, up by the power post, kind of in the corner of the engine compartment. And we don't have a ton of extra wiring to work with. It reaches, but it's close, so just keep that in mind when you're routing this. But I brought it up and over, zip tied it along through here. Do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts, anything like that. Where it runs along through there, and then I kind of just pushed it right up into the engine compartment. Here's where our wire comes on up, and we'll just let that kind of lay off to the side for now. Let's get out of her way, and we can mount up our circuit breaker. So I'm going to put this right here in this area. And I'm going to do that with a couple of self-tapping screws. So I went ahead and cut our wire to length here, and the one that is coming from the front of our Jeep, that's going to go to the gold post. It's labeled battery, so it might be a little deceptive, but that's the way it's supposed to work in this particular situation because the motorhome is acting as our battery. But what we want to do, excuse me, is strip the end back. Twist that wire, and then take one of the small terminals, small ring terminals, put that over it. And crimp it down. This is how we're going to make all of our electrical connections. It'll work the same way. And I remove the little nuts that come on the post. We'll take the terminal, put it over, and reinstall the nut. And with these, you can tighten them down with a 3/8 size socket. And you don't have to get crazy. What I like to do is just get it tight by hand and then come back with a real small wrench or something and just snug it down a little bit. I took the remaining piece of wire that we had left over from trimming this one to length, and on one end I crimped on a small ring terminal, and that's going to get connected to our silver post. That's just going to run into this opening there. And here's where it comes out, where we can get this end sorted. So on this end, I crimped on a larger ring terminal, and this is going to get hooked up to our power supply right here. With this power post, it's going to have a 13mm head nut on it. So we'll get that removed. And I personally like to just apply some pressure to the wires that are connected to it, just so we don't lose contact there. We'll pull that nut off. Take our ring terminal, put that over the post, and just tighten this back down. Once that is complete, that's really all there is to it for the charge line. So not very difficult, but with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster towed vehicle battery charge line kit on our 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee.